Admiral Kethver stared at the endless black space through the viewing window of his flagship. The stars looked the same as they had for the past 50 years. Nothing ever happened out here in the Outer Rim. Nothing at all. He was a Zephyrian, tall and blue-skinned with 4 arms that moved smoothly as he worked at his command station. His people had served the galactic hegemony for 3,000 years. They were the military arm of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Every species in known space either served the hegemony or had been destroyed by it. Admiral called his second-in-command. "We are completing Sector Sweep 779. All readings normal. No signs of life or technology." Kethver nodded. Of course, there were no signs of life. There never were. This region of space had been mapped centuries ago. The survey teams had found nothing but empty systems and dead rocks. No habitable worlds. No intelligent species. Just void. That was why patrol duty in the Outer Rim was considered punishment. Young officers were sent here to learn discipline. Older officers like himself were sent here when they had displeased someone important. The message was clear. Nothing of value existed in this forgotten corner of the galaxy dot, but the hegemony demanded that every system be watched. Order must be maintained everywhere, even in empty space. That was how the Empire had grown so large and stayed strong for so long. They controlled everything. "Sir," another officer spoke up, "sensors are detecting an energy signature in grid section 12. Kethver turned toward the sensor station. Energy signatures usually meant one of 3 things: a dying star, solar flares, or equipment failure. "What type of signature?" "Unknown, Admiral. The pattern is strange." Strange. In all his years of service, Kethver had learned that strange usually meant broken equipment. The sensors on these old patrol ships were not the best. The hegemony saved their good technology for important regions of space. "Show me the readings," he commanded. The main display lit up with data streams. At first glance, it looked like a standard stellar event. Energy discharges, particle emissions, the kind of thing stars did when they were old and unstable. But as Kethver studied the numbers, something felt wrong. The energy patterns were too organized. Too regular. Stars did not emit energy in perfect mathematical sequences. They certainly did not produce the kind of refined metal signatures his instruments were detecting. "Computer," he said, "analyze energy pattern for artificial origin." The ship's artificial intelligence processed the data for several seconds before responding. Pattern shows 97% probability of artificial origin. Detecting organized electromagnetic emissions, refined alloy compositions, and controlled fusion reactions moving through space at sublight velocity. The bridge went quiet. Every officer turned to look at the Admiral. Artificial origin meant technology. Technology meant intelligent life. Intelligent life in the Outer Rim meant the impossible had happened. "That cannot be correct," Kethver said slowly. "Run the analysis again." "Analysis confirmed, Admiral. The signatures are consistent with a large technological construct moving through space under its own power." Kethver felt his 4 hands grip the arms of his command chair. In 3,000 years, the hegemony had never missed an intelligent species during first survey. Their methods were perfect. Their technology was absolute. If there had been intelligent life in this region, they would have found it. "Perhaps it is a ship from another sector," suggested his second-in-command. "Maybe a transport got lost. Check all hegemony vessel movements in the past year," Kethver ordered. The computer responded immediately. "No hegemony vessels are scheduled for this region. No ships reported missing. No distress signals received." The Admiral stared at the data flowing across his screens. The energy signature was growing stronger, which meant whatever was creating it was getting closer. The readings showed something massive, something powered by technology he did not recognize. Could it be a new species? Asked one of his officers. Perhaps they developed spaceflight after our last survey? Kethver considered this. The last detailed survey of this region had been conducted 200 years ago. It was possible, though unlikely, that a primitive species had developed space travel in that time. But the energy readings suggested very advanced technology, far beyond what a newly spacefaring species should possess. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "the object has changed course. It is now heading directly toward our fleet." That changed everything. Random objects did not change course toward military vessels. This was either a ship trying to make contact or a ship preparing to attack. Given that they were dealing with an unknown species in supposedly empty space, Kethver had to assume the worst. "All ships to defensive positions," he commanded. "Raise shields and prepare weapons. Send a message to Hegemony Command. Tell them we have encountered an unknown vessel of alien origin." His crew moved quickly to carry out his orders. Within minutes, his patrol fleet had formed a defensive formation around his flagship. 6 heavy cruisers and 12 destroyers, enough firepower to level a small planet. More than enough to handle any threat from a primitive species. But as the readings continued to flow in, Kethver began to worry. The energy signature was not just large, it was impossibly complex. The computer counted hundreds of different systems working together in ways that made no sense according to known physics. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel." "What kind of transmission?" "Mathematical sequences, sir. Basic numerical patterns. It appears to be an attempt at peaceful communication." Mathematical sequences were the universal first contact protocol. Every species in the galaxy used mathematics to prove intelligence and peaceful intent. When meeting another species for the first time, it should have been reassuring. Instead, Kethver felt a chill run through his body. The unknown ship knew galactic first contact procedures. That meant they had been watching Hegemony communications for some time. They had been learning about the Empire without revealing themselves. This was not a primitive species making first contact. This was something else entirely. "Prepare a standard first contact response," he ordered. "Demand immediate surrender and prepare them for processing according to Hegemony integration protocols." It was the same message the Hegemony had sent to thousands of species over the millennia. Submit to the Empire and be allowed to serve. Resist and be destroyed. Simple and effective. The response came back in perfect galactic standard language. "I don't think so." 4 words that changed everything. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the alien ships move into formation ahead of them. After 100 years in deep space, she was finally home. But the galaxy they had left behind was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. "Captain," her communications officer said, "we are receiving another transmission from the alien fleet. They are demanding our immediate surrender." Sarah nodded. She had expected this. For the past 6 months, as the Defiance approached the outer edge of the Milky Way, they had been monitoring alien communications. What they had learned was deeply troubling. The galaxy was now ruled by something called the Galactic Hegemony. Every intelligent species was either a slave or had been destroyed. There was no middle ground, no negotiation, no choice. The Empire had spent 3,000 years conquering every world they could find. And humanity was not on their list of known species. "Dr. Martinez," she called to her science officer. "Confirm our weapon systems are fully operational." "All systems green, Captain. The new technologies we learned from the Andromedans are functioning perfectly." Sarah smiled grimly. The past century had been well spent. When humanity had fled the galaxy after nearly destroying themselves in the resource wars, they had been broken and desperate. They had learned hard lessons about violence and war, but they had also learned about survival. The journey to the Andromeda Galaxy had taken 50 years. The journey back had taken another 50. But during their time in that distant galaxy, they had met species far older and wiser than anything in the Milky Way. They had learned new sciences, new technologies, new ways of thinking about war and peace. Most importantly, they had learned that there were alternatives to endless conflict. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "the alien ships are moving to surround us. Weapons are powered but not yet targeting us." Sarah studied the formation on her main screen. 18 ships total, arranged in a classic hegemony battle formation according to the tactical data they had collected. Heavy cruisers in the center, destroyers on the flanks, all designed to maximize firepower. While protecting their flagship Dodd, it was an effective formation against any enemy that followed conventional rules of space combat. Unfortunately for them, humanity had abandoned conventional rules a long time ago. "They think we are primitives," she said to her crew. "Their first contact protocol assumes we will surrender immediately when faced with superior numbers. They have never encountered a species that refused to submit." Her first officer, Commander Jackson, moved to stand beside her. "Captain, we could try to reason with them. Explain that we are not a threat." Sarah shook her head. "Look at their history, Commander. 3,000 years of conquest. Hundreds of species enslaved or destroyed. They do not understand reasoning with equals because they have never met any." She had spent weeks studying the hegemony's methods. They were efficient and brutal. Any new species was given a simple choice: submit completely or be wiped out. There were no treaties, no negotiations, no diplomatic solutions. The strong ruled and the weak served. It was exactly the kind of thinking that had nearly destroyed humanity before they left the galaxy. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "they are hailing us again. Should I respond?" "Put them through." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the alien flagship. The creature standing in the center was tall and blue-skinned with 4 arms. Its face was stern and confident. This was clearly a species that had never known defeat. "Unknown vessel," the alien commander said. "I am Admiral Kethfer of the Galactic Hegemony. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your species will be evaluated for integration into galactic civilization. Resistance is not permitted." Sarah stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. She was a small woman by human standards, barely 5.5 feet tall. To the hegemony, she probably looked weak and helpless. That was their first mistake. "Admiral Kethfer," she said calmly, "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Defiance. I appreciate your offer, but we must decline." The alien's expression did not change, but Sarah could see confusion in its eyes. No species in 3,000 years had declined the hegemony's offer. "You do not understand," the Admiral said. "This is not an offer. This is the natural order. The strong lead and the weak follow. Your species will submit or be destroyed." "Admiral," Sarah replied, "with respect, you do not understand. Humanity does not submit. We tried that path once, and it nearly destroyed us. We learned better ways." "There are no better ways," the alien said with certainty. "Strength determines survival. Your single ship cannot stand against my fleet." Sarah smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Admiral, you are making assumptions based on incomplete information. You assume we are weak because we are few. You assume our technology is inferior because it is unfamiliar. You assume we will behave like every other species you have encountered." She paused, letting her words sink in. You are wrong on all counts. The alien admiral's 4 hands moved to weapons controls on his command chair. You will surrender now, or face the consequences. I am afraid that is not going to happen, Sarah said. However, I will make you an offer instead. Withdraw your ships and report to your superiors that humanity has returned to this galaxy. Tell them we are willing to talk, but we will not be conquered. Choose wisely, Admiral. The alien's response was predictable. After 3,000 years of absolute power, the hegemony had forgotten how to back down. All ships, open fire. Admiral Kethver commanded. Sarah had hoped it would not come to this, but she had prepared for it. Humanity had learned many things during their time away from the galaxy. They had learned about peace and cooperation from the wise species of Andromeda. But they had also learned about war from species far more advanced than the hegemony. All hands battle stations, she ordered. Engage defensive systems. Prepare to show them what humanity has become. The first alien energy beams struck the Defiance's shields and simply disappeared. Not absorbed or deflected, but completely negated by technology that turned energy into something harmless. The second wave of alien weapons met a similar fate. The third wave never reached them at all. As the Defiance began to move in ways that should have been impossible for any ship with a living crew, Admiral Kethver was about to learn that the galaxy had changed while he was not watching. Humanity was home, and they had brought new rules with them. The age of the galactic hegemony was about to end. Admiral Kethver watched in horror as his carefully planned attack fell apart in the first 30 seconds. The human ship moved like nothing he had ever seen before. It changed direction without slowing down, ignoring the basic laws of physics that governed all space travel. Sensors report impossible acceleration, his tactical officer called out. The enemy vessel is pulling 75 gravities of force. Any crew inside should be dead. But the ship was not just moving impossibly fast. It was moving impossibly smart. Every time his weapons fired, the human ship was already somewhere else. Not because it was faster, but because it seemed to know where his shots were going before he did. How are they predicting our targeting? Kethver demanded. Unknown, sir. Our computers show clear targeting locks. But the enemy ship moves exactly 1 second before our weapons reach their position. The human ship suddenly stopped all movement and hung in space directly in front of his fleet. For a moment, Kethver thought they had won. Then the human weapons fired. The beams that struck his ships were impossible. They passed through his shields as if they were not there. They cut through armor like it was made of soft metal. But strangest of all, they seemed to know exactly what to hit to disable his ships without destroying them. Engines disabled on the destroyer squadron, his communications officer reported. Weapons offline on cruisers 7 and 9. They are targeting our systems with perfect precision. This was not how space battles worked. Wars were fought with massive fleets firing countless weapons until one side was destroyed. Victory went to whoever had more ships and bigger guns. But the humans were fighting a completely different kind of war. They were fighting surgically. Sir, his second-in-command said, the human ship is firing some kind of projectile weapons. On his screen, Kethver could see small objects shooting from the human ship toward his vessels. They were moving slowly compared to energy weapons, and his point defense systems should have easily destroyed them. Instead, something impossible happened. The projectiles passed through his ship's hulls like they were made of air. Then, once inside, they suddenly became solid and exploded. How did they pass through our armor? He asked. Sensors indicate the projectiles shifted their matter phase while in transit, his science officer reported. They became non-solid to pass through barriers, then resolidified inside our ships. Matter that could change from solid to energy and back again. Weapons that ignored shields and armor. Ships that moved without regard for acceleration limits. Everything the humans did violated the known laws of physics. But what disturbed Kethver most was not their technology. It was their behavior. "Sir, we are intercepting human communications," his signals officer announced. Translating now. The bridge speakers crackled to life with human voices speaking in their alien language. The translation software worked quickly to convert their words into galactic standard. "Target the weapon systems on the heavy cruiser," one voice said calmly. "Disable but do not destroy. We want prisoners, not corpses." "Understood, Captain." Setting weapons for minimum damage. Navigation, bring us around for another pass. Try to avoid hitting their life support systems. Kethver listened in amazement. The humans were not fighting with rage or desperation. They were fighting with cold, calculated precision. More disturbing, they were actively trying not to kill his crews. "They are toying with us," his second-in-command said with horror. "No," Kethver replied slowly. "They are being merciful." It was a concept that did not exist in hegemony military doctrine. The strong destroyed the weak. That was the natural order. But the humans were clearly stronger, and they were choosing not to destroy his fleet. "Admiral," his communications officer called out. "The human ship is hailing us again. Put them through." Captain Chun's face appeared on his screen again. Behind her, Kethver could see her crew working calmly at their stations. They showed no signs of stress or excitement, despite being in the middle of a space battle. "Admiral," Captain Chen said, "I'm offering you one final chance to withdraw. Your ships are disabled, but your crews are alive. Take your people and leave. Tell your empire what happened here." Kethver stared at the human female. She had just defeated his entire fleet in less than 10 minutes, but she was offering to let him escape. It made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare and conquest. "Why?" he asked. "You have won. Why not destroy us?" Captain Chun tilted her head slightly, as if the question puzzled her. "Because you are not our enemy, Admiral. You are just following orders from people who have forgotten that there are other ways to live. The hegemony is the natural order," Kethver said, though his words sounded weak even to himself. "The strong rule. The weak serve." "Admiral," the human said gently, "that is not the natural order. That is just one choice among many. We made that same choice once, and it nearly destroyed us. We learned that strength can be used to protect instead of conquer. That intelligence can be used to create instead of destroy." She paused, and her expression grew serious. "We spent 100 years learning from species far older than yours. Species that chose cooperation over conquest thousands of years ago. They are still alive and growing stronger every day. Your empire has been conquering for 3,000 years. And what do you have to show for it? Fear, hatred, endless rebellion that requires endless violence to suppress." Kethver wanted to argue, but he found himself thinking about his own experiences. The constant revolts on conquered worlds. The resources wasted keeping unwilling subjects in line. The fear in his own ranks that any mistake might lead to demotion or death. "What are you proposing?" he asked. "Nothing. Right now," Captain Chun replied. "We are simply announcing that humanity has returned to this galaxy. We will establish ourselves in this sector and offer an alternative to any species that wants one. If your empire leaves us alone, we will leave it alone. And if the hegemony chooses to attack you again?" Captain Chun's smile was not threatening, but it was completely confident. "Then we will defend ourselves, Admiral. And your empire will learn that the galaxy is much larger and stranger than they ever imagined." The communication ended, leaving Kethver staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. His fleet was crippled but intact. His people were alive when they should have been dead. "Sir," his second-in-command asked quietly, "what are your orders?" Kepfer looked out at the human ship hanging motionless in space. It had not moved since the battle ended. It was simply waiting for him to make a decision. "Signal all ships," he said finally. "We are returning to base immediately. Maximum burn. Sir, what should we report to Hegemony Command?" Kepfer thought about that question for a long time. How could he explain what had happened here? How could he describe weapons that ignored physics and enemies that chose mercy over victory? "Tell them," he said slowly, "that we have encountered something impossible. Tell them that humanity has returned to the galaxy, and they have learned things we do not understand." As his damaged fleet limped away from the battlefield, Kepfer wondered if his empire was ready for what was coming. Somehow, he doubted it. High Executor Vashtai stood in the center of the Hegemony's Supreme War Council, his massive frame radiating the authority of 3,000 years of unbroken conquest. The report from Admiral Kepfer lay on the holotable before him, glowing with impossible data. "This cannot be accurate," declared General Dexmore, his scaled head shaking in disbelief. "A single ship cannot defeat an entire patrol fleet. The sensors must have malfunctioned." Vashtai had thought the same thing when the report first arrived. Admiral Kepfer was known for his steady nerves and accurate reporting, but the data he had transmitted seemed like the fantasies of a damaged mind. "Show the tactical recordings again," he commanded. The council chamber filled with three-dimensional images of the battle. They watched in silence as the human ship moved in ways that violated every known law of physics. They saw weapons that passed through shields and armor as if they were not there. They witnessed a military engagement that followed no rules they understood. "The recordings have been analyzed by our best technicians," Vashtai announced. "They are genuine. Every impossible thing you see actually happened." The council erupted in angry voices. Species representatives from across the empire demanded explanations that did not exist. How could one ship defeat 18? How could weapons ignore their most advanced defenses? How could the natural order be so easily overturned? "Silence," Vashtai commanded, and the room fell quiet immediately. His species, the Korthik, were the ultimate enforcers of hegemony power. When they spoke, others listened. "The situation is clear," he continued. "An unknown species calling themselves humans has returned to the galaxy with technology we do not understand. They have demonstrated the ability to defeat our forces using methods that appear to violate known physics. What do we know about their origins?" asked Counselor Yethra, the hegemony's chief intelligence officer. "Very little. They claim to have been gone from the galaxy for 100 years. Our historical records show no evidence of their existence. However, given their technological capabilities, it is possible they could have hidden their presence from our surveys. Or, Vashtai thought but did not say, perhaps the hegemony was not as all-knowing as they claimed to be. What are our response options?" General Dexmore asked. Vashtai activated the holodisplay again, showing star charts of the Outer Rim region. "Admiral Kepfer reports that the humans have established some kind of presence in sectors 778 through 781. Long-range sensors detect massive construction activity, but we cannot determine what they are building." The truth was more troubling than he was willing to admit in open council. The humans had not just established a presence. They had transformed an entire region of space in the weeks since first contact. Massive structures had appeared at seemingly random points, not orbiting planets or stars, but floating freely in empty space. "My recommendation is overwhelming force," he announced. "Whatever advantages these humans possess, they cannot stand against the full might of the hegemony war machine." It was the only response the Empire knew. When faced with resistance, apply more pressure until resistance was crushed. It had worked for 3 millennia against hundreds of species. "How large a force are you proposing?" asked the Grand Counselor. 10,000 ships, Vashti replied. The largest battle fleet in our history. 15 dreadnoughts, 50 heavy cruisers, 200 destroyers, and support vessels. Every ship equipped with our most advanced weapons and shielding. The council members looked impressed. Such a force could destroy entire star systems. No military in galactic history had ever faced such overwhelming power and survived. When will the fleet be ready? The Grand Counselor asked. 3 weeks. I will personally command the operation. As the council meeting ended and the various representatives filed out, Vashti remained behind to study the human recordings one more time. Something about their behavior disturbed him in ways he could not explain. The humans had won a complete victory, but they had shown mercy to their enemies. In 3,000 years of hegemony conquest, no enemy had ever shown mercy after defeating their forces. The strong dominated the weak. That was the natural order, but these humans seemed to follow different rules. 3 weeks later, the largest military force in galactic history gathered at the edge of hegemony space. Vashti stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching his fleet form up around him. 10,000 ships filled the space around him. From massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets to swarms of fighters that could blot out stars. The combined firepower of this fleet could sterilize 100 worlds in a single day. Surely no force in the galaxy could stand against such power. Long range. Sensors are detecting the human constructions, his tactical officer reported. Admiral, these readings make no sense. Explain. The humans have built structures in empty space, sir. Not around planets or stars, but at arbitrary coordinates. The structures appear to be manipulating space-time itself. Vashti frowned. Show me. The main display filled with sensor data from the human-controlled region. Where empty space should have been, massive geometric constructions floated in perfect formation. They seemed to bend light around them, creating visual distortions that hurt to look at. What is their purpose? He asked. Unknown, sir. But the structures are generating gravitic fields that extend across multiple star systems. They appear to be reorganizing local space. Impossible. No species has that level of technological sophistication. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Vashti straightened. Put it through. The display flickered and showed the bridge of a human ship. The same female captain from Admiral Kethver's report stood in the center of the view, looking directly at him. High Executor Vashti, she said calmly. I am Captain Sarah Chen. We have been monitoring your fleet's approach for several days. Several days? His fleet had been running silent, using the most advanced stealth technology in the galaxy. How could the humans have detected them so far away? We are impressed by the size of your response, Captain Chun continued. 10,000 ships is quite a statement. However, we feel obligated to point out that you are making the same mistake Admiral Kethver made. And what mistake is that? Vashti asked. You are assuming this will be a conventional battle between two fleets, the human replied. You are thinking in terms of numbers and firepower. Those concepts are not relevant to how we fight. All concepts are relevant to warfare, Vashti declared. Superior force always wins. Captain Chun tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. High Executor, may I ask you a question? Speak. In your 3,000 years of conquest, how many species have you encountered that fought in 4 dimensions? Vashti blinked. 4 dimensions? That is impossible. How many have used gravity as a weapon? How many could coordinate their actions across light years of distance instantaneously? Such things violate the laws of physics. Captain Chun smiled, and Vashti felt a chill run down his spine. High Executor, the laws of physics, as you understand them, are incomplete. We learned that during our time away from this galaxy, you will surrender immediately, Vashtai commanded, or face the consequences of defying the hegemony. I am afraid we cannot do that, Captain Chun replied. However, I will make you the same offer I made Admiral Kethfer. Withdraw your forces and report to your superiors that humanity offers an alternative to endless conquest. There is no alternative to strength, Vashtai declared. Then I suppose we will have to show you one, the human said sadly. The transmission ended, leaving Vashtai staring at a blank screen. Around him, his fleet hung in space like a cloud of metal death, ready to unleash destruction on an unimaginable scale. What they found instead was that humanity had spent their time away from the galaxy, learning to rewrite the rules of existence itself. The battle began at exactly noon, Galactic Standard Time. High Executor Vashtai gave the order for his 10,000 ships to advance, expecting the humans to flee or surrender when faced with such overwhelming force. Instead, something happened that no military strategist in galactic history had ever seen. The human fleet, barely 100 ships, spread out across impossible distances and began fighting in ways that redefined what warfare could be. The first thing Vashtai noticed was that his ships could not maintain formation. Space itself seemed to be working against them, stretching and compressing in ways that separated his vessels from each other. Ships that should have been side by side found themselves light minutes apart. Report, he demanded from his navigation officer. Sir, the humans are manipulating local space-time. They are creating gravitational fields that alter the distance between our ships. We cannot coordinate our attacks. On his tactical display, Vashtai watched his carefully planned battle formation dissolve into chaos. His dreadnoughts were isolated and vulnerable. His support ships were scattered across multiple star systems. His fighters could not find their targets. The humans, meanwhile, moved through space as if distance was merely a suggestion. Ships appeared and disappeared instantly, striking at his fleet from impossible angles before vanishing again. How are they moving so fast? He asked his science officer. They are not moving through space, sir. They are folding space around themselves. They can travel from one point to another without crossing the distance in between. It was like fighting an enemy that existed in a completely different reality. Every rule Vashtai knew about space combat had been broken in the first 5 minutes, but the truly shocking part was still to come. Sir, his communications officer called out. We are receiving medical assistance from the human fleet. Vashtai turned sharply. What? When our ships are damaged, the humans are sending rescue craft to evacuate our wounded crews. They are providing medical aid to our people. It was impossible. In the middle of a space battle, the humans were actively saving the lives of their enemies. They were fighting with one hand and healing with the other. Why would they do such a thing? His tactical officer asked in confusion. Vashtai had no answer. The concept of showing mercy to enemies during active combat did not exist in any military doctrine he knew. It violated the basic principles of warfare. Sir, another officer reported, the human ships are broadcasting on all frequencies. They are speaking to our crews directly. What are they saying? They are explaining their technology, sir. They are teaching our people how to escape from damaged ships and how to treat battle injuries. They are trying to keep our people alive. Vashtai listened as human voices filled his communication channels, speaking in dozens of different alien languages. They were not demanding surrender or threatening destruction. They were offering help and guidance to anyone who needed it. This is Captain Chun of the human fleet, came a broadcast in perfect galactic standard. To all hegemony personnel, we are not your enemies. We are simply defending ourselves. If your ship is damaged, signal for assistance and we will render aid. No one needs to die today. It was madness. The humans were fighting the largest battle fleet in galactic history, and they were worried about keeping their enemies safe. "Sir," his weapons officer called out urgently, "our main guns are offline. Something has disabled our targeting systems." Across his fleet, the same thing was happening. The humans were not destroying his ships. They were methodically disabling them, removing their ability to fight while keeping their crews alive and safe. "How?" Vashti demanded. "They are using some kind of quantum interference, sir. They can reach inside our ships and turn off specific systems without damaging anything else." The battle, if it could still be called that, continued for 3 hours. 3 hours of the most one-sided military engagement in galactic history. The humans moved like ghosts, struck like lightning, and healed like angels. When it ended, Vashti found himself sitting in the command chair of a completely disabled ship, surrounded by a fleet that had been rendered harmless but kept alive. Not a single crew member in his entire armada had been killed, though every ship was now powerless. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "Captain Chun is hailing us. Put her through." The human appeared on his screen, looking exactly as calm as she had before the battle began. Behind her, Vashti could see her crew working peacefully at their stations. They showed no signs of celebration or triumph. "I execute her," Captain Chun said. "Your fleet is disabled, but your people are safe. We have medical ships standing by to assist with any injuries. Food and water are being delivered to any vessel that needs them." Vashti stared at the small human female who had just defeated the greatest military force in galactic history. "Why?" he asked. "Why spare us?" "Because this does not have to be about conquest," she replied. "We did not return to the galaxy to build our own empire. We came back to offer something different. What could you possibly offer that the hegemony does not already provide?" Captain Chun was quiet for a moment before answering. "Choice," she said simply. "For 3,000 years, your empire has offered every species the same deal: submit or die. We offer a third option, which is cooperation between equals, growth through shared knowledge, strength through diversity instead of domination." She paused, and her expression grew serious. "I execute her. We have spent the last century learning from species far older than any in this galaxy. We have seen civilizations that have existed for millions of years without conquest or war. They are stronger and happier than anything your empire has ever produced." "That is impossible," Vashti said, though his voice lacked conviction. "The strong must lead. The weak must follow. That is one way to organize society," Captain Chun admitted. "But it is not the only way. And after today, it is not the strongest way." Around them, space began to fill with new transmissions. The human demonstration had been broadcast across the galaxy, and every species in hegemony space had watched the impossible unfold. Voices began speaking in languages Vashti had not heard in centuries. Species that had been silent for generations were talking to each other, asking questions that had been forbidden for 3,000 years. "What have you done?" he asked in horror. "We have reminded the galaxy that your empire's power comes from the belief that resistance is impossible," Captain Chun replied. "Today we proved that belief wrong." She leaned forward slightly, and her voice grew gentle. "High Executor, we do not want to destroy your empire. We want to give every species a choice. Those who wish to continue as part of the hegemony may do so. Those who want to try something different can come to us. There is room in this galaxy for many different ways of life. And if the hegemony refuses to allow this choice," Captain Chun's smile was sad but firm, "then you will discover that the galaxy is much larger and stranger than your empire ever imagined. We are not the only ones who have learned new ways of existing. We are simply the first to return home." The transmission ended, leaving Vashti alone with his thoughts and his disabled fleet. Around him, space buzzed with activity as human rescue ships moved between damaged vessels, providing aid and comfort to former enemies. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galactic hegemony had been defeated. Not conquered or destroyed, but offered something it had never encountered before, an alternative. Across the galaxy, subjugated species were beginning to ask dangerous questions. Questions about choice and freedom and the possibility that the strong did not have to dominate the weak. The age of absolute empire was ending. What would replace it remained to be seen, but for the first time in millennia, the future was full of possibilities instead of certainties, and in the empty space where humanity had made its stand, Captain Sarah Chun began broadcasting a message to every inhabited world in the galaxy. We are humanity. We offer our hand in friendship to any who would take it. The choice, as always, is yours. The galaxy would never be the same.